Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alya Wulandari. I would like to do my reading report video. For the material is about the language policy and planning. So the first key points that I already read is the first is about the language education. So language education is had four. The first one is language education makers like individual, institution, and government. So everyone makes a personal language choice, but a broader levels education are made by teacher, textbook, writer, linguists, and policy makers. And then the second one is about language planning orientation by various 19 and 18.4. Like language can be seen as a problem, a right, or a resource. This perspective shape how language is managed in different contexts. And then the third one is language policy planning and practice. So distinguished it by Rubin and Spolsky, like policy refers to official laws, planning is the implementation strategy, and practice refers to actual language used in daily life. And then language policy in public and private space like reveal whether education are meant for institutional purpose like a school, government, or an intimate setting. And then the next key point is about the corpus status and acquisition planning. So what is the corpus planning? So basically corpus planning is to modify the structure of the language such as like a standard releasing, spelling, or creating new term for technology especially. And then status planning. So to interest or reduce the practice of a language, for example, like a Singapore campaign to promote standard English over the Singlish. And then acquisition planning, like a focus on encouraging language learned from educational bilingual programs and curriculum development. And then the next is keeping language alive. So language vitality, maintenance, and revitalization is how to keep language is still alive. They to prevent language death, like intergeneration transmission is essential for a language survival. And then evaluating language maintenance effort like that reversing language shift is extremely difficult, especially when past beliefs have suppressed to minority language to minority language. And then what the planning for access the service, the first one is must be considered in the design of the public service like education, healthcare, and legal system. Like lack of language access can severely limit people's right and safety as seen in cases where Quechua speaker could not access educate healthcare. And what is language policy and planning in the globalizing times? Language planning and poverty, like complicate access to language, education, and service, socioeconomic status should not be mistaken for linguistic deficiency. So what is the language planning and immigration? So basically, we plan the language and then we have the immigration. So the migration challenge the traditional nation-born planning. Like the immigrant also need the language support and planning. Like they must adaptation to increasing multilingual society. And then the linguistic landscape. I already taken this subject and this semester, and I already learned about what a linguistic landscape like. Basically, about the public sign, like how to language use in the public space. So this approach in the linguistic policy is planning and policy is approach to analysis public sign to understand language use in the city and how the language is can be used in the public space. So it can be reflect the feasibility and the what the status of the language, like especially those used by immigrant community or communities. And then the language planning as a conflict resolution. So language policy is help to resolve the ethnic and social conflict, like a Joe peace building like work use dialogue to develop inclusive policies that respect minority language rights. And then what is the roles of the apply linguistic? So basically, apply linguistic that contribute to planning through education, language documentation, curriculum development, and technology. And their involvement is crucial for effective, inclusive, and sustainability language. So I think that's all for my reading report about the linguistic planning, policy and planning. Sorry, like language education, and then corpus status and acquisition, and how to keep language alive, planning for access to service, and then language question planning in globalizing times, and linguistic landscape planning as a conflict resolution, and roles for apply linguistic. I think that's all for my reading report. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.